All right, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you guys had a nice morning. Didn't get too chopped up with the FOMC meeting. I wanted to give you guys a post FOMC update. I probably won't be able to do the evening update tonight since I will be a little bit busy, but let's go ahead and take a look and see kind of what to expect the remainder of the day as well as the upcoming days. Okay, so when it comes to the daily, I was the whole time during the FOMC meeting, I was a little bit torn. I was torn between being a bear, because we were staying above weekly open for the majority of the first, part of the week. And then, on the other hand, as being a bull, I was like, well, you're bouncing off of some of these key levels, and we were kind of showing some, resistance at some points. So it was a lot of chop. I took a couple of trades, made profit quickly, didn't really stay in. So um, it was an interesting time for sure, though. It was definitely a tough day to trade, I would say. Um, so looking at the daily, now that it's Wednesday, you've lost the weekly open. We've tried to stay above it today. I would expect that we're probably not going to return here. Okay. We have bounced, we bounced off of it on Monday, made a kind of a bullish candle up with a strong wick touching the 21. Tuesday, it was decent, with the potential that we could move below our, value area profile range, right? At 65,705 would be our value area low. And then today, finally, we lost it, right? So I would expect that this is a bearish profile for the week now. Um, that being said, there may be some, longs that could be had down here, potentially if we get down here and find some sort of resistance. But um, I'll put it this way, don't expect that we're going to come back up, at least for this week, to the 65,702 area. Next week could be different, but for right now, the way that this month is turning out, this is somewhat of a bearish month in my opinion. If we do take a look at the monthly candles, you can see that this is now kind of a bearish engulfing candle. It's like a continuation candle for the bears. So I am expecting this to close bearishly. Hopefully next month, if this does close bearishly, that we get some sort of tweezer bottoms going on. But for right now, we have to assume that this is going to close bearishly, at least for the month. Um, so that's kind of where I stand on the macro time frame scale. If we drop down into like the 12-hour, somewhat of a decent sign. We're kind of bouncing off of this, 21 MA right here. But again, we lost at 64,410, which was my first, resistance line. We're gonna probably come down here quickly to revisit 63,372, and then basically figure out what we're gonna do from there. If we do find a bottom right here, I'm not expecting like this huge move up, like I said this week. I'm expecting more of like a chopping around, maybe getting a little bit higher, testing the 64,410, but I don't personally think that we're going to get back above 65,702 this week, like I said. Um, the 8 hour, again, same thing. We're seeing that we're losing this level. We could, on a bullish case, be making like a huge cup and handle type of formation. So, drawing it out, here's your cup, right? And then here's your handle, something like this, right? Probably visiting this area right here. So just kind of keep in mind that that's a possibility. Um, I'm open to any ideas, but for right now, for the remainder of the week, I am in more of a bearish sentiment for the macro environment. Um, Now the 4 hour we just closed below this line, so definitely a bearish case scenario. I don't see any reason why we don't come test this for right now. So 63,372 is in the cards for me. Like I mentioned, 1 hour kind of shows the same thing. It looks like we are about to almost lose this 200 MA. So, we might experience some chop or get some sort of bear flag here, you know, possibly testing this area, trying to reclaim it. But this is kind of what I'm seeing is we're probably going to get some sort of bear flag and then drop this down here. So this measure move even tells us if we were to make a bear flag here, it would take us closer to that 62,146, but I would expect a bounce potentially for 63,372 for right now. We'll check liquidity for that. But anyway, so that is what I'm seeing for the short term. 15 looks like we already got our death cross here. We got rejected off of the 200 MA up here. So, definitely look and see some consolidation for now. Look for the 21 to meet price action here. Make some sort of flag to continue down lower. All right, let's go ahead and go into trading different, our liquidity tool. Again, guys, this is my favorite tool to use. I've tried all sorts, Bull Vision, Bookmap. This has been the best one to use so far, mainly because it's more like a trading view chart and you can really see where liquidity is at. So use my code if you want access to it. You will get 10% off by using my code, tradingdifferent.com/code/Sean. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this. 4 hour with the 25x. So you can see that we're starting to dive into this little pool right here. This does align with that 63.3 level. So this ends at 63.302. This would be the first area I'm targeting. If we are, an extremely bearish scenario, we're going to just keep falling through these, right? So, after this is visited, next target would be, on the 4 hour at least, it'd be around 61, 605-ish. It looks like it ends, or 61.5-ish. So that's definitely in the cards. One good thing I will say is that the 10x, we don't really have any concentrated liquidity until we get into the 50s. We have a lot more of it above. Same with the 5x and the 3x. The only negative so far is that we have more, you know, red liquidity down here, a lot more concentrated liquidity to the downside, a lot more people going long. This will show a little bit more, um, you know, basically when we get into our simple map on Trading Different, which I'll be going to in a bit. But for now, this is what we're seeing on the actual chart, okay? Let's go ahead and move into our 1 hour, see what's going to happen sooner rather than later. So looking at the 1 hour, we are getting that bounce off of the 200. Probably going to just, like I said before, have the 21 come and meet price action. Probably getting a death cross here is what I'm assuming for now. We don't really have a lot of liquidity to drive us back up just yet. So not enough short liquidity to bridge us back up through this gap right here. Same goes for the 50x. So again, there's quite a big gap right here. You can see that we can take out the 64, 5-ish area, get a tiny bit of a bounce, but I wouldn't expect anything major for right now. This is a bearish sentiment for me currently, like I mentioned before. So, all right, short-term time being, you're looking at 63, 400-ish area, which aligns with the 4 hour, right? Taking out this yellow liquidity, possibly bouncing somewhere in here. That's what I'm targeting for now, in the short term. If we are extremely bearish for the remainder of the week, we will start dropping down into that 62 level as well, and even further into the 61 level. But I am expecting some sort of little bit of a bounce here in the 63.3, 63.4 area, okay? Moving down to the 15-minute, which is then where we'll compare the Kiyotaka order book here on the right. You kind of see the same thing, just a little bit more zoomed in. So right here, 63, 450-ish area, it looks like is where we have the concentrated yellow. We could even take this down here, at least a part of it, a portion of it, before we get a tiny bit of a bounce. So just kind of keep that in mind when it comes to, where we're going sooner rather than later. Yeah, 50x kind of, unfortunately, it really shows us that we could come down all the way down here to 63, 300 area. So there is a nice, red bar if we zoom in right there. So that is a potential target for this week if we can't, keep any of these support levels and drop straight through. So yeah, guys, just kind of keep that in mind. We are in bearish sentiment. So as far as where we're going to bottom for the week, I would expect a bottom to be either tomorrow or on Friday. More than likely, my guess would be Friday, but again, who knows at this point. Taking a look at the order book, we have some support down below. It looks like we have some support around 63.3, which supports that, 786, that next 786 bounce. So as long as these orders will stay, that does support the bounce. Unfortunately, we do have quite a few orders building up in the 62 area as well as the 61 area that we were talking about on the 4-hour time frame. So for right now, though, we got to expect there could be a potential small bounce at least from 63.3 to 63.4. That's what I'm seeing so far, at least. So, anyways, guys, that is for, what I'm seeing for right now for the week. We could, it would be very, very rare if we went above weekly open again and, came up here to some of these orders. I personally think that these will be saved for, next week or even for next month. But again, like I've always told you guys, nothing is, guaranteed in this market. So, um, just be aware of kind of the macro bias that we're all currently facing. And you could potentially catch some longs down here from some resistance zones, but just be aware that you're probably not going to be able to ride it all the way up to these areas just yet. So just be careful with that. Um, let's go ahead and take a look at the small or simple heat map here, where it gives us the X and Y coordinates for scalping and for swing trading. Um, so as you guys can see, we have a little bit of 100x left to take out here. Before we start diving into some of this bigger part of this pool, 63.3, we do have, a less amount of liquidity. We took some of it out today, but it looks like some people closed some of their short positions, so we don't have as much of a, um, how should I put it, a bridge to get us back up into the 67 area. So that did shrink, right? From a scalping perspective, that liquidity did shrink, unfortunately. So there is a bigger chance that we take more of this out now, for right now, at least for the rest of the week. Now, on the bigger time frames, on a positive note, we do have quite a bit of the 25x and the 10x building up now, on the 4 hour and the daily. When it comes to the bigger time frames for the swing trades, you can see that there's a higher probability that we're going to take out this 25x and this 10x to the downside first. I'm not sure where we're going to stop, but there is a bigger probability to do that first rather than the small amount that's to the upside up into 67,000. So that's what we're seeing currently. But just keep in mind, guys, that as price drops, there is more short liquidity that builds up, and this will get bigger again, right? Same with this area above for the scalping trades, right? This area will get bigger as we drop in price. So by price dropping, it's invoking more shorts to be taken out as liquidity above, right? Um, Vice versa for the longs, as we take out long side liquidity, that's building up, or as price moves up, I should say, it's building up long side liquidity for the shorts to basically take that out, right? So it works opposite. So, anyways, guys, that is what I'm seeing so far for the week. I hope you guys found this update helpful, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow morning to see where we're at. Take care, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.